I'll be home in time. Money for the
Councillors, we have sound. Councillors, we might make a start if we may, please. Welcome to the special council meeting of Wyndham City this Tuesday, 26 June 2018. In the spirit of reconciliation, before we begin this meeting, I acknowledge the peoples of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which Wyndham is being built, and we pay our respects to their elders, both past and present. Could you please stand for the opening prayer? We pray for guidance in council's decision making to achieve the best outcome for the people of Wyndham. Please be seated. I would like to welcome members of the gallery, press, councillors and staff here tonight for this special council meeting. I would also like to acknowledge our Director of City Operations, Stephen Thorpe, who is acting CEO for this meeting as Kelly Grigsby is on leave, and I apologise in advance if I accidentally say Madam CEO. Some of you may have seen the notices in the foyer, but for those of you who didn't, I would like to make you aware of the following. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the internet. The recording will be archived and made available on Council's website. Whilst all care has been taken to ensure that your privacy is maintained, please be aware that your presence may be recorded. Item 2 on the agenda is apologies. Mr. Acting CEO, do we have an apologies?
Mr. Mayor, there are no apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe. So being there are no apologies, apologies, yeah, what you said. We'll move straight on. We don't need a mover in a second, obviously. Item 3, declaration by councillors of disclosure of conflict of interest, conflicting personal interest in any item on the agenda tonight. Councillors, does anyone wish to declare any conflict on any item tonight? Councillor Marcus.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 4.3, adoption of Council's integrated plan and budget 2018-19. It's item number 1 in the recommendations, and it is on the Werribee Catalyst site and the Werribee Promenade, and I have a conflict because I have a commercial building in that area.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. So, councillors, just be aware that when we come to that item, I will move item 1 on its own. And at that point, prior to that, Councillor Marcus will leave the building, leave the chamber, and we will vote on that. And then we will then ask Councillor Marcus to return for consideration of the rest of the items. So, councillors, item 4 on the agenda is officers' reports. 4.1, response to petition 17/06, request for car parking at Williams Landing Town Centre. The report commences on page. The report commences on page 3. Their recommendation is on page 4. Councillors, can I have a mover, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move. I would like to have this item deferred, please.
Marcus.
Thank you.
Councillors, may I have a seconder, please? Councillor Gilligan. Discussion, councillors, if you wish.
No, I don't wish to comment or debate at this stage. Just I would like the matter deferred until a later date.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. All those in favour, please. Oh, I beg your pardon. Other discussion. Okay, sorry, I thought there was no discussion. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I agree. I'm happy to defer for our ward, but I will say that public transport is critical and parking is an important issue in our city, but on this occasion we'll defer till the next council meeting. Thank you.
Councillor McElhaney. Councillors, is there any discussion against the motion? Against? Councillor Hooper?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think this has been floating around for quite some time now, and there's no reason to defer this particular motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Any further discussion on or for?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Look, I certainly think that, or at least from my view, and I'm sure other councillors will agree, that the principle of this petition is acceptable, but by deferring it to a later date, it will give us the capacity to build on it further as part of a very rigorous evidence-based platform that will come further down the track. So it will be important to add that in the context of why I do support this deferral, and indeed echoing Councillor McElhinney's points. And so it's important to inject that into the debate for the purposes of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilling. Councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I have to say that, and agree with my fellow councillor Tony Hooper, it is important for the people for Williams Landing and surrounding those has been affected with the car parking. So are really opposing now. This is important now. We should discuss. If the other councillors believe we can get more information and can discuss further, it can be requested after debate today, because I believe there is no better topic, better than the Williams Landing car parking to discuss. Today, I know it's a significant day for the City of Wyndham, talking about the budget, but I believe there are many residents have expectations for 11 of us to raise this topic, and I look forward to debate once again when they come back into the chamber. But I would say that this is a burning issue, close to my heart. When I stood for council election, I pledge and I say, are we advocating for that car parking? So it's important. Now I look forward to see what can be aid to make a difference in a couple of weeks when we're going to discuss about the same thing.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Any further discussion, councillors, for or against? Given that there has been a speaker against, Councillor Marcus, I know you didn't wish to speak initially. You do have the right of reply if you wish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that it's a great decision if the councillors will support this motion that I've just asked to have deferred. I believe that we need a lot more information and to make sure that the decision, when it comes back to council, will be the right decision.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. So, councillors, please indicate clearly. All those in favour? Against? 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion is carried.
Can I call a division on that?
Yes, you can.
You can.
Call a division, Mr. Mayor.
You can certainly call a division, Councillor
Division on
Hooper.
teamwork.
Dead right.
I certainly can. All those councillors who voted in favour, raise your hand. Councillor Gilligan, Councillor McElhinney, Councillor Villa-Gonzalo, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Maynard, Councillor Shaw, Councillor Marcus. Against, Councillor Gibbons. It's all right. It's just, yeah, it's all good. Councillor Khan, Councillor Hooper. Yeah, and Councillor Ahn. Are you voting for or against? Where did you vote? You voted against, so raise your hand as against. No, we've called for a division, so I'm calling out the councillors who voted against, and until you raise your hand, I can't call you as voting against. If you don't raise your hand, then I'll record you as being abstained. You're against. Thank you, Councillor Ahn. Okay, let's move on. So, the next item on the agenda is 4.2, consideration of submissions regarding the proposed integrated plan and budget. The report commences on page 8. The recommendation is on page 8 to 10, with attachments on 12 to 24. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Hooper, seconder. Councillor Gilligan. Hang on. Councillor Gibbons. So, Tony Hooper, Gibbons, right. So I have a seconder. Now, did you say Councillor Gilligan? Are you indicating that you wish to move an amendment?
Yes, I am.
Well,
to the substantive motion, that's correct.
Okay, I'm just getting clarity around. So I'll ask councillor Hooper to speak first. Once he does, then you'll have the opportunity to move your amendment, and then I'll ask the mover and the seconder if it's acceptable. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, cool. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
You're welcome.
It's always fantastic to hear from our community about what is important to them, and I thank the residents who took the time to be part of this process. Whilst the number of submissions are not within Council's area of responsibility, and we do have an advocacy role to play, and the submissions have assisted us in raising the profile of some important issues connected to those. An example of this is our work in relation to parking at train stations. We know that this is an issue for many of our residents, and we are doing all we can to try to prompt some action. Not only are we willing to write to the Minister of Public Transport, we are willing to do the legwork in seeking to attract private funding in an effort to alleviate the pressures of car parking, as well as advocate for stations along the rail link. I was also pleased to see that we'll be undertaking further work to understand the aquatic needs in Point Cook and how facilities are planned schools within that area could be utilised by the broader community. This is an example of maximising available community infrastructure, and I think we should be doing it more and more. Finally, I'm pleased that work will also progress on developing a business case for the pop-up park in Wyndham. Or pop-up parks in Wyndham, I should say. I believe that what we have seen today in both Point Cook and Werribee warrants a really serious look at how we can provide something for the community that appears to have been embraced and well attended by both sites. But with any major investment like this, it is important that we do our homework first so we can really understand everything that is involved, such as road closures, maintenance costs and management models. I understand the organisers of the Point Cook pop-up park have submitted an application as part of the state government's Pick My Projects grants program, and I congratulate them on showing the initiative to reach out to other levels of government. Mr Mayor, I'm happy to support this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hooper. Now, councillor Gilligan, your proposed amendment.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Mayor. My proposed amendment is as follows, pertaining to submission 3, that Council support the removal of all text and replace it with that Council note and thanks Arnev Sati for his contribution in relation to the matter raised, and all other items be removed as indicated, including on page 14 of 156 in relation to comments and recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor Hooper.
I do not endorse that change.
You do not. Councillor Gibbons. Okay, so that being the case, Councillor Gilligan, would you be proposing an alternate should this motion be lost?
Yes, Mr Mayor, that if I'm proposing an alternate, it would be that Council accepts my amendment in relation to submission.
All the items, removing what you previously said.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So that's if this motion be lost.
That's correct.
Correct. No, the amendment's done. Gone. Okay, so Councillor Hooper, you've spoken. Thank you. Any further councillors speaking for this motion?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment to the motion.
An amendment. Councillor Shaw, which is?
Yes, so thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to, in relation to the point regarding submission 7, I move that the current wording be replaced with that Council support the request for financial assistance for the Western Emergency Relief Network of $15,000 for the 2018-2019 financial year only.
Okay, so does the mover of the original motion, you do. The seconder,
I'll second.
No. Who seconded the original motion, which is Councillor Gibbons? You accept that amendment, Councillor Gibbons? You do. Okay, so now we're talking about what was, plus the amendment for Councillor Shaw. So now that's part of the motion. Cool? We're all good? Honky dory. So I'm now going to ask for anyone else who wishes to speak against the motion as it now stands.
Yes.
Point of clarification, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly.
Don't you need a seconder to support that amendment?
No, I don't, because I've asked the mover and the seconder of the motion if they accept the amendment, and they do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Councillor
you
Gillian.
very much, Mr. Mayor.
You're
In the
most
spirit of teamwork, it is important to consider that people should vote down this motion. And as part of that consideration, will enable potentially, and I'll need your correction on this, Mr. Mayor, a reconsideration of a new substantive motion that can take into account the amendments that have been made by Councillor Shaw and any other amendments made by other councillors if you vote this down. And so that is why I'm recommending that this be voted down, Mr. Mayor, to enable the consideration of the motion that I put.
The alternate, which you're proposing.
Which was debated and ungratefully unaccepted by the mover and the seconder, so as to stymie debate or kill discussion on it. And that is why we should vote it down to enable further discussion on the new motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, speakers for.
Speakers.
For what we're currently debating. Yes, Councillor Shaw.
7.
And the rest of it.
Okay.
It stands.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In putting forward this amended motion, I wanted to highlight the important work that the Western Emergency Relief Network does for the community. In his presentation to Council, Doug Greig did a fantastic job in highlighting just how far this $15,000 would go in providing vital emergency relief resources for in-need members of our community, which can be as basic as a pillow to sleep on. I note that whilst this group supports the entire western suburbs, most of their work is done here in Wyndham. I would also like to see officers continue to work with this group, as we do with other groups, for ongoing support from other agencies or levels of government, as I do acknowledge that this type of funding is not something Council can provide on an ongoing basis. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does he not know that? Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillors. Councillors, speakers against, please. Speakers for. Councillor Marcus.
Yes, I would like to support Councillor Shaw's motion. I think it is very important that we support the Hoppers Crossing Rotary Club in their venture to ask us for funds for the Wern operational costs. All of the Rotary clubs here in the City of Wyndham belong to this organisation, and they are doing absolutely lots of wonderful work, as many of our other organisations do. But I believe it's very important that we help and we assist the Rotary clubs to make sure that they are able to continue their work, and they have a lot of costs coming up because they have to find a warehouse, and just a little bit to help them with their operational costs will go a long way. And as Councillor Shaw said, that just to make sure that they give somebody a pillow or a blanket, it's a wonderful feeling. And this was reiterated to me last week when I was with the Rotary Club. And, you know, it's just wonderful to think that we've got these service clubs. Without these service clubs in our city, we really wouldn't have a wonderful city like we have. So I fully support the Hoppers Crossing Rotary Club getting a grant of $15,000 on this one occasion.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. Councillors, any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm very happy to support the motion as it sits because of the good work that I think that Wern's is going to actually provide. And as many people would know, I've been a strong supporter of people who are homeless, people who find it very hard to survive from one paycheck to another. After spending a number of years on the board of the Uniting Care, which actually looks after homeless people and children who the parents didn't have enough money to buy them breakfast on the way to school. So any organisation for an amount of $15,000 that can actually start to provide a service for the people who are struggling to survive and struggling to put food on the table, I think is a very well worth cause. I must admit that I'm disappointed the fact that submission 3 was not supported because it actually contradicts the fact that we deferred item 4.1, which we were seeking more information and further discussion internally with council about the fact that council in no way can support or put funding into multi-storey car parking. It's a state issue, and it's a pity that this motion, if it gets passed, and I will be voting for it, is actually passing a submission that states that, where are we, the last part of the sentence, as well as currently developing a business case financing model to seek funding from the private sector for multi-use, multi-storey car parking at these stations. And yet, item 5 on the previous motion supports that very point, which is what we deferred for. To me, that seems to be a little strange that we would say no to one thing and then we pass this one. And it just doesn't appear logical to me. And because I think we need to do a lot more work on where council is going to spend ratepayers' money. And I don't know whether there'll be too many ratepayers are happy to have their rates thrown at multi-storey car parking at train stations when they probably don't go anywhere near a train for most of their lives. So I support the recommendation and the motion as it sits, but I want to make it quite clearly that submission 3 is contrary to what we've actually agreed to before.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow.
Mr Mayor, can I get a point of clarification?
You can.
Under 11.1b for procedures for motions and amendments, is it the case that I as a councillor can put an amendment to the motion, yes, receive a seconder, yes, that is not the mover or the seconder, and then, yes, enable debate on the amendment? Is that correct?
That is correct, and the governance has just advised me of that.
Great.
And if it is not accepted, then it's...
Excellent. And so with that, I do propose, yes, if I can, Mr Mayor, the amendment that was put originally, that is that submission 3 be amended to state that we remove all wording for submission 3, including on page 14 of 156 for comments and recommendations. And we note the following, that we thank Arnev Sati for his contribution for the budget submissions, and therefore a seconder can be made.
Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. And as I did before, if there is opposition to it, it will be lost.
Yes, that's, yeah.
So, which I didn't do before. For that, I apologise. Councillors, do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Barlow. Now.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I think Councillor Barlow very eloquently outlined why we should be supporting this amendment, and so I will leave his remarks and not add anything further.
Thank you very much. Now, do I have any opposition to the amendment?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I thought I'd read out an email that we received as councillors a couple of weeks ago.
Right, so now you've indicated your opposition.
Yes.
And we'll now take it to a vote.
Well, I do get to speak to that. The other side of the table has had quite a number of airtime opportunities in regards to this space.
Same. Once you speak, we will then vote.
Council officers recognise the need to work with public transport agencies on this issue, being parking. Council wrote to the Minister of Public Transport in April 2018 seeking multi-storey car parking at Williams Landing, Tarneit and Werribee train stations. However, a request for a meeting to pursue this initiative is still awaiting a response. Whilst this is occurring, Council is also considering private financing, not ratepayers, not state government, private financing models for multi-use storey car parking at these rail stations as an advocacy platform to the state government. In parallel with this action, Council's City Transport Department has engaged consultants to develop a business case to seek funding from the private sector to build multi-storey car parks at the Tarneet train station. This business case is scheduled to be submitted to the Department of Treasury in September 2018. The amendment that happened in 4.1 and right now is work that we're doing already. Advocacy for this community about car parking stations and looking at bigger picture situations for the whole city to make it so that people can actually use the transport that is on offer in this city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. So, councillors,
Point of clarification.
Councillor Barlow.
I agree with Councillor Hooper. It's for this whole municipality. But if I...
The clarification?
The clarification is that item that was just read out is only about the Tarneet station.
No, it covers Werribee and...
Hang on, Councillor.
I'm just saying. Maybe we could hear it again because I'm just concerned that item that was brought up previously, if it only mentions Tarneet, then my concerns are still the same. It should be for the whole municipality. But I'm happy to hear it again.
Councillor Hooper might be running for Tarneet.
I think that it's quite... excuse me, Councillor Hooper. I think it's quite explicit in what it says. We now have a vote on the amendment. Should the amendment be supported, it will become part of the substantive motion. We will then resume discussion on the substantive motion. Thank you very much. Councillors, please indicate if you support the amendment.
Excuse me. Point of clarification, Mr. Mayor. I put up my hand for the speaking on this point in this topic.
Well, Councillor Khan, I did not see your hand, so for that I apologise, but we're now in the process of voting. So all those in favour, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 10. 6 and 4 is 10. No, 5. Yeah. No, 6 and 4 is 10. Somebody didn't vote. Who didn't vote?
You voted before. You voted twice.
I voted before. Somebody didn't vote this time. There's only 10.
No, there's 11 of them.
All right, so we get 4.
4.
4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Before we had 6, so I can count. Against. 1, 2, 3, 4. The amendment is carried.
Mr. Mayor, point of division.
It now becomes a substantive motion. We will now call for a division on those who voted on the amendment. So, again, 7 this time. Again, 4. Councillor Gibbons, Councillor Gilligan, Councillor McElhaney, Councillor Watlebin Gonzalo, and I got that right. Councillor Barlow, Councillor Maynard, Councillor Shaw. Against, Councillor Marcus, Councillor Ahn, Councillor Hooper, and Councillor Khan. So now we now have the substantive motion, which includes Councillor Shaw's amendment. Yes. Because it became part of the substantive motion. Now, I can't remember if we were for or against. So I'll just ask if there are any speakers who wish to speak for or against them. So we'll go against. Anyone else wish to speak against the motion?
Substantive motion.
The substantive motion, as it now sits. You wish to speak against it, Councillor Ahn?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move amendment to the motion.
An amendment to the motion.
Yes.
And what is that, Councillor Ahn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So under the point regarding submission 9, I move that council request to meet with the resident to discuss further to understand potential opportunities, find solutions to address the needs for indoor sports, table tennis, badminton, and extra, as identified in the Wyndham Sports Strategy 2045.
Thank you, Councillor Arndt. Now, does the mover and the seconder of the substantive motion accept that amendment?
Yes. Who are they? Oh.
Which were Councillor Hooper and Councillor Gibbons. Do you accept that? You do. So it now becomes part of the substantive motion. Is there any further discussion, either for or against this motion that we have before us? The substantive motion? None? You wish to further discussion, Councillor Arndt?
I will speak.
You're not speaking on the merits of your amendment. Your amendment has already been accepted.
Okay. That's it.
So is there any further discussion on this item? Thank you, Councillor Khan. You're indicating for or against?
Mr. Mayor, for 4.
For, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I support the amendment to the change to the...
We're not talking about the amendment, Councillor Khan. The amendment has been accepted by the mover and seconder. We are now discussing the motion itself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's what I would say, that some of those things which is outlined in the motion, I support, and particularly the submission number 7, which is talks about that, which is put forward by the WERN, and they...
The WERN?
Looking for the funding. And
it's already been accepted. That was accepted. We've passed that.
Isn't Mr. Mayor, we're just...
In general?
In general.
Okay.
Thank you. So...
I'm just clarifying.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm supporting the in general entire motion.
Fine.
And I've been delighted to see that, that some of the here submissions been presented by a passionate resident such as Arnav Sathi regarding the train station car parking and other matters, which is very important to the community. And former Wyndham Mayor, Bob Clough, which is come up some of the points, what is important regarding that, sorry, say something?
Former.
Yeah, former Mayor of the Wyndham City Council, Bob Fairclough, have presented importance of the Wick roads to reduce the speed limit to the 60 kilometres per hour on some of those Snaies roads, Point Cook 2 and Snaies Road to be intersections, to be funding signals and other issues they were presented. I was there. I think it's great when then community is actually submitting what is important to the community. I also see there's a big, particularly I'm not a fan of the Popper Park because I particularly believe it's excess of spending $1,000. I don't believe it's needed at this stage for the City of Wyndham, and I have not seen anybody's whinging about the park, and I personally believe that item should be considered in maybe near future because important to have some of the areas in the Tarnit and particularly in Truganina where we are struggling to have the grass, a proper grass in parks where communities actually quite new and they interested in using the park. So I think there is a basic need for the city and some of the other infrastructures we're crying it. So these luxury items like such as Popper Park can be explored in future, but at this stage it should not be a priority of the City of Wyndham. Now in relations to the 15K, I would like to say that...
Councillor Khan.
Sorry?
1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to say that Doug Gregg, Rotary Club of Harper Crossing, have presented excellent case to the city, and I'm totally supportive of what Councillor Barlow has said, that there are some people in the City of Wyndham where it's struggling from pay to pay, and I understand that homeless is a big issue in the city, not just in the city but in Victoria. I think if we can do something about 15K, I'm actually thinking not a 15K, should be more than 15K, should be 150K rather than 15K, because this is important, and real people, those who live in Wyndham, they can get a true benefit of our true dollars, which is taxpayers paying to us, and we can equally distribute to those ones that really need it. So it's very close to my heart as being homeless. I wish if we can make a difference to these people and support them.
Khan, can you wrap up, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I will be interested in. Thank you.
Now, thank you. Okay, any further speakers? Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd just like to say generally, it's great to hear from the community on a number of submissions. It's really important as a result of residents taking the time to put their submissions together, and I thank them all for that. I'd just like to comment on a couple of submissions, and that was one from our former Mayor, Bob Fairclough, and the Point Cook Residents Association, and the issues he's raised in relation to some of our roads and the intersections at Point Cook and Sneeds Road. That is a priority for our city. I think it's really clear from the report that a lot is happening behind the scenes in terms of our advocacy with Vic Roads and state government, and how we play a role in progressing these works. And I can say that we are doing that almost on a weekly, if not a fortnightly basis, as to where we're at with this this particular project, because it is critical. Both myself and ward councillors share the concerns in relation to that particular intersection, and I hope to have an outcome very soon for our city. I'd also like to acknowledge the great work in relation to the pop-up parks for Werribee and Point Cook. We've had the officer's recommendation clearly states that we'll get a formal business case together and then a subsequent presentation and see where we go from a council perspective. But I've never seen so much work put in over the Christmas break and communities getting together in these pop-up parks. It was amazing, and it really brought the community together. So I look forward very much to seeing those that project and that business case coming forward. In relation to the emergency from the Rotary Club, they do an amazing job as a representative on the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee. I see the work that they do. They've done presentations with us in relation to coming and speaking to us and all the agencies, and quite often they're called out 24/7. So I'd just like to congratulate everybody for putting in their submissions, and we do take your submissions seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McElhaney. Councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Shaw, I believe you indicated.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to also thank all the submitters for taking the time to engage with us on this process, and I do think there will be some good outcomes as a result. I would also love to see more submissions next year, and I do encourage residents to think about what community projects or initiatives that they would like support from council with. I think this year we only had 9. I'd love to see more than that actually come to council. I know there's a lot of good work happening out there in our community, and I think council could be supporting and working with a lot of groups and people much more closely. However, the majority of issues raised as part of this budget process for this year, many of them actually are the responsibility of the state government, and I also have requested that these submissions are passed on to the relevant local members. And I do also encourage residents to take up the issues directly with their local member of parliament to ensure their voices and their issues are heard. It is the role of council to assist and advocate for community groups and people in our community, but it is also when they are state government responsibilities, sometimes our hands can be tied a little bit too, and it's important that residents take those ideas or initiatives or issues to their local members as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Any further speakers, councillors? Councillor Barlow.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think one of the great things about a democracy and council's transparency is to give people the opportunity of actually contacting us and having their say, and we see this in the 9 submissions today. I in particularly would like to thank Mr Arnav Sati for his efforts in getting the community involved in looking at the car parking issues. It's definitely an issue. I can only say to Mr Sati that we've been arguing about car parks and train stations and the number of train services in over 20 years that I've been involved on local government. So it's nothing new. We continue to fight the good fight. And in fact, we wouldn't be having the discussion, Mr Mayor, on the Tarneet car parking issue or the Williams Landing car parking issue if it wasn't for you as the community representative to the regional rail line going back all those years ago, where the federal and the state governments got together and decided that they were going to put an alternate train line through the city of Wyndham to do that. And so I just want to make sure that the community understand quite clearly that this issue on rail, not enough train services, bus services, etc., etc., etc. This is a decades-old fight, and we fight it, and we continue to fight it, and we've been very successful as a council since I first got involved in 1997 of actually winning a lot of those arguments. And I want to just suggest that we will continue to fight the fight. To be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I don't need a motion to continue fighting for more train services or for more car parking, because we know it's what we need and it's already there. And we've been fighting it since, Jesus, I don't know, since probably I was a boy.
1 minute.
And
You haven't been on council that long, Councillor Barlow.
Well, that's true, I must admit, just quietly.
Point of clarification.
Point of clarification. And so I want to say thank you to the community for putting in their submissions. I think there's been a lot of winners out of this, and we'll continue to fight the fight, whether it's for car parks or whether it's for duplicating roads or more kindergartens. You know, I don't need a motion to fight those fights. We just do it because it's the right thing by the community.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Any further speakers? I think pretty much everyone's had a go, except me. And all I'll say is that, because I get to say that because I can, that I certainly do agree with Councillor Shaw in the fact that we would like to have much more submissions from the community, given the size of the community, and much more diverse. So, councillors, are we all clear on the motion that now, the substantive motion that we are voting on? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. It's on the screen behind me, I'm told, and it's in front of me, I know. So, all those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? The motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Not hard at all.
We all learned something then, especially me. Thank you very much. Moving on. Item 4.3. Adoption of Council's Integrated Plan and Budget 2018-19, and I am aware of your conflict, Councillor Marcus. I will mention that in a sec. The report commences on page 25, the recommendations on page 26 to 28 with attachments 32 to 156. Now, as I indicated before, given that Councillor Marcus has a conflict on item 1, we will hear item 1 separately. Councillor Marcus, if you will now leave the chamber. So we will need 2 motions. Thank you. Now, councillors, do I have a mover for item 1? Councillor Barlow. A seconder. Councillor, gee, all hands went up. Councillor Hooper, you got there by a millisecond. That's all right. Discussion, councillors. No discussion. I put it to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Khan, are you abstaining?
Yeah.
All those in favour, raise your hand. Against? The motion is carried. Can be noted that Councillor Khan abstained from the vote, please. Thank you. Can we now have Councillor Marcus return to the chamber, please? Thank you, Councillor Marcus. Councillors, we now will consider the remaining parts of the recommendation being points 2 to 20. Can I please have a Councillor Gibbons? Seconder, please. Councillor Barlow. Councillor Gibbons.
Mr Mayor, I'm pleased to endorse the integrated plan and budget tonight, as I feel it provides a responsible mix of asset renewal and new construction that ensures we are servicing the needs of established areas as well as growth fronts. The integrated plan and budget provides the blueprint for what we are going to deliver for the next financial year and how it will be funded, and how I acknowledge the residents that took the time to provide feedback as a part of the process. Wyndham City's 1819 integrated plan and budget provides for much needed capital works expenditure of up to 146 million, whilst maintaining the rate variation to be consistent with the rate cap set by the government of 2.25%. And we are proud to be able to achieve this whilst not compromising on service delivery as a result of increased efficiencies and doing more with less. I also note that we have reduced the rating differential for commercial developed land from 1.5% to 1.4% in an effort to reduce the rates burden on businesses and encourage greater investment in our city. It is important for residents to remember that this is a revaluation year, which means that properties will have rates applied depending on their value. This does not mean council gets more money. As land values are higher, we still collect the same amount. It is apportioned differently. Some will pay more where others will pay less. I sincerely believe that residents will see value for money in the light of the range of projects and services that we deliver. I'm particularly pleased to see funding allocations to major assets such as Wyndham Park and Galvin Park, as well as 7.2 million for improved sporting infrastructure at Mossfield Reserve. The $37 million investment in local roads will see a number of major projects completed that will help relieve congestion and improve road safety, which we know is a priority for residents. Our integrated plan and budget is not only about the planning and delivering of new projects, but it also provides for the continuation of vital services such as kindergartens, maternal and child health, and the maintenance of our many parks and gardens. It is all extremely important, and in a growing city like ours, we need to keep up with demand, which is an ongoing challenge. We have big plans for this city, and some of this work occurring in our key activity centres is like nothing that has been seen before. I'm proud to be part of it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbons. Councillor, is there any speakers against the motion? Okay, any further speakers for the motion? Councillor McAlone.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm pleased to support the 1819 integrated plan and budget. As a councillor, I'm proud that we're able to deliver such a significant program of capital works, 146 million, of which 37 million of local roads and 4.1 million on local parks, to name a few. And maintain service delivery for our growing community in a rate cap environment. And I think Councillor Gibbons explained quite clearly how the rate system works. This is a real challenge, and a great deal of work was done in seeing how we could try and achieve as much as we can without always dipping into ratepayers' funds. Some of the partnership projects we have underway demonstrate how this council is delivering what we can for a community without them always having to foot the bill for it. This is also evident in the advocacy work that we do on behalf of the community, and we've got a fantastic lot of people behind the scenes that are doing some tremendous work in the advocacy area and obtaining a lot of the information ready for us. We're also able to deliver on an integrated plan and budget such as this because we're always pushed for our fair share elsewhere. As outlined in the budget document, we have provided approval for the borrowings of additional 30 million if required. Importantly, our borrowings are tested and monitored against VAGO, which is the Victorian Auditor General's debt and liquidity guidelines. And I'd like to reiterate, the borrowings are only utilised for intergenerational projects, and the decision of whether we actually need to borrow will be based on cash flow requirements as well as the external financial market conditions. So we may not even borrow those funds. This is a reasonable budget that strikes the right balance between providing what the community needs whilst also maintaining a strong financial position. I'd like to thank the Finance, Strategy, Governance and Executive teams for all the work and support they've provided to councillors in getting this plan and budget together, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McElhaney. Councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I won't be talking about anything in particular. I'd just like to put on the public record that putting this document together, which is 124 pages, doesn't occur in the last month, doesn't occur in the last 2 months, doesn't occur in the last 6 months. It did start prior to Christmas, followed up by councillors and council officers working on weekends, having meetings during the week in the evenings and sorting out what is a very difficult budget. And I say difficult, not that it was that hard for us to do, but difficult in that because we're the biggest growth council in Australia and we have so many demands that we actually have to sort out exactly where we're going to spend the dollar to get best value. Is everybody going to be happy? No. Do we believe that we've done the best that we possibly can with the funds that are available to us? I think we have. And as I say, if you want to take the time out to read the 124 pages, you will see that there's we're covering every sort of nook and cranny from one corner to the other. And I want to in particular thank my fellow councillors for the work that they've done, the weekends that they've had to give up, for the evenings that they've shown up to the briefings to sort this out, the council officers who continually go away and come back with alternative ideas, alternative motions for us, alternative costings and whatever. And I think that they need to be congratulated because really, when you see a duck floating across a pond, the duck is the council. The council officers, I have to admit, are the ones that are paddling like nobody's business underneath, getting all the work done. And I want to thank you guys for the amount of work that you do put in because it is the hidden part of the organisation. So I just want to say that, well, I suppose that's it. It's a lot of hard work and I'm very pleased with the outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. I think that's a quacker of a statement.
Quack.
Councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am speaking in favour of the motion to adopt this proposed budget tonight. A budget that I feel strikes a balance, similar to my colleague, but between the needs of tomorrow with the needs of today. 37.1 million is going into our road network across Wyndham, including traffic signals at Dunnings Road, Lennon Boulevard, and at Boardwalk, Miles Franklin Boulevard intersections. Investment into our future traffic needs while still improving our roads and providing safe access for pedestrians to cross those roads in particular. We will also deliver open space works totalling 26.4 million with 4.1 million into our local park upgrades, construction of open space and recreational infrastructure at a number of reserves, and investment that our community will appreciate for years to come, especially as our parks and open spaces are heavily used weekdays and on the weekends. 2 million is going into the Lighting the West project to replace street lights with LED lights, bringing sustainable lighting to our suburbs. The enhanced quality and reliability of these street lights will lead to a number of benefits, including reduced light spill and improved community safety. But I have to echo Councillor Barlow's comments in thanking everyone for the work in putting this together and for the finance team, the unsung heroes who made this journey a very tolerable journey. Thank you. I commend tonight's budget to my fellow councillors, a budget that addresses the needs of tomorrow with today's, and if adopted, I know the community will certainly appreciate the projects we will bring to life. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Well said. Councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Marcus.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that the council have worked extremely hard over the last few months to provide a balance between providing vital services and capital works for this growing city. Between 2017 and 2018, the estimate population increased by 11,413 people, or 219 people per week.
Boy,
With 209 people per week.
so I said, boy, that's a lot.
No, that's not babies.
No, that's a lot of people.
And don't cut me short of time.
Is that
With these figures, Wyndham is one of the fastest. It's only one of the fastest growing cities in Victoria. It should come as no surprise to any of us that the past few years have presented challenges to our city, both in terms of our level of growth, but also the financial uncertainty across the world. And sadly, this will continue, and I believe will be a major concern, as there is a trend already in the softening of the housing markets. And I listen to these every week, and this is now down 15%, the auctions are down 15% at the same time this year, and this is a big concern. I remain concerned about the increasing cost of living for our residents and the adverse impact council decisions may have on this now and into the future. It is more evident than this time last year, and it's coming through loud and clear from our people. Council budgets must also address cost pressures not included in the cost index, such as growing services demands, declining government funding, and this is where we're in trouble, and the rising state levies, such as the fire levies and the commercial industrial areas. Council budgets now face the growing pressure on municipal waste management due to China not accepting the recyclables. I'm sorry, I've got to go fast.
No, you don't have to go fast, Councillor Marks. You've got plenty of time.
Good, thank you.
We have extended the time tonight because of...
Thank you. What I want to say, our Environment Committee, our council officers are doing a fabulous job in this city, and the environment, I would say, is one of the most important things that we have. We have created this monster, as I tell everyone, but we are trying to address it, but we have to get to the people and get them to have less waste, and we're doing that. We've had families in and they've learned how to save their waste. I am pleased to see the council is not neglecting our environment, but I do not think I will ever get used to the small blocks and the high-rise apartments being built here and in the city of Melbourne. It is vitally important that council continue to plant more trees and develop our open spaces for every resident to enjoy, as most of the big backyards have gone forever. This year, council is spending substantial amounts of money on our parks, which will make a big difference to this city. These programs are all listed in our budget papers that hopefully our people out there have got. I am also pleased that council has only increased our garbage charge by $10 this year, and you'll see that other councils have charged it more.
Up to 90, Councillor Marcus.
Per year, and that the green waste bin has been reduced to $75 per year instead of the $103.50. I am also happy that council will have other days where people can take their green waste to landfill. I think the budget papers are well set out for the residents to read, and under theme 1, people and community, I am extremely pleased to read of the 15 major initiatives on page 57. Sadly, I'm not going to have time to list them. This budget is focused on enhancing livability, and it contains a large number of specific initiatives geared towards ensuring that our city is an attractive city in which to live, work and play. I'm very happy to see the increase for the arts and culture, but in all of our discussions with community groups and all forums, it comes through loud and clear that residents would like to see the performing and visual arts better catered for. I have been pushing for this for years, but it is still not coming through well enough. Many people do not or cannot play sport, but they do love their arts. I'm concerned about the fees and charges being charged at the council-owned facilities, in particular the Cultural Centre, and I note that these charges have increased by 2.3% on average. I am sadly told that many of our dance schools cannot afford to have their shows here in Wyndham, and I think this is very sad, as this is an impact on our economy by losing these shows to Geelong, Melbourne and Hobsons Bay. Melbourne and many of our internal roads are congested, and on the radio this morning people were ringing in advising that the speed limit, or the speed that they can travel, is down to 35 kilometres an hour. So that's a pretty sad indictment on on the state government.
We need to, we're at 5 minutes, Councillor Marcus.
Oh my
so
God. Okay. We are constructing roads as fast as we can here in this city, and I think we are doing a good job. But unfortunately, the way our growth is, I'm not sure that we'll ever catch up. We must work in partnership with all levels of government to keep these rising costs of living down to get better funding, but they do not seem to be listening. In light of what we've heard from the state and federal governments in regard to their financial position, this budget, as with all other past budgets we have delivered, will focus on the positive factors that we need to do to position our city for the future and give it the success and services it deserves. Councillors, we need to ensure that over the life of this council we reduce costs while delivering high quality services and value for money to our ratepayers. We need to drive efficiencies and reinvest the savings into this great city.
Please, Councillor Marcus.
Will do. We need to create an environment conducive to doing business and attracting investment, which includes small business to the Wyndham so that they may prosper into the future without council having to increase the burden on the ratepayers. I'm nearly there. All levels of government, be it local, state or federal, have to listen to their communities, understand what they are saying and most importantly respond to the needs. But I am happy to advise in our Wyndham 2040 vision under people and community, we have stated the people of Wyndham will be connected to each other. We will be known for listening to and learning from the diversity of our residents. So, councils, in conclusion, I am happy to support this budget tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. And at 6 minutes 56 seconds.
You are so kind to me.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus.
I had to cut some out.
Oh, it's all good. I think we got the point. So, councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Shaw.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think my notes are 6 minutes, but I'll talk a bit faster. So I'm also pleased to support the adoption of the integrated plan and budget this evening, as I do believe it also strikes the right balance for our city. A great deal of work has gone on from between councillors and officers into developing this plan and budget, and I believe that a number of really important projects will be funded that will bring real benefit to our community. In my view, the public consultation process highlighted that we are on the right track, and I encourage the community to continue to work with council in helping us to understand your needs and concerns. Similar to Councillor Hooper, I'm also thrilled to see that we'll be delivering open space works totalling $26.4 million. In particular, the continued rollout of improvements to our local neighbourhood parks, with $4 million allocated for next year and $5.9 million on Wyndham Park redevelopment in our city centre. Today we heard from a research project undertaken with Council and the University of Melbourne that people who use the Werribee City Centre want to see more parks and open spaces. It is fantastic to see these projects underway that will deliver what our residents are asking for, and more of our parks will be upgraded next financial year. As a family-friendly city portfolio holder, I've considered projects identified in the integrated plan and budget in the context of how we can contribute to the livability of our city for all families, specifically the members of our community who may live with a disability. The custom facilities that will be incorporated at the Tarneek Community Learning Centre, the Wyndham Aboriginal Community Centre in Wyndham Vale, Werribee South Beach and the Truganina East Family Learning Centre will ensure that Council is leading how we can build a city that is accessible to all. Overall, we are working towards building a livable city that provides opportunities for employment, entertainment and community wellbeing. This is being achieved through a series of city-shaping projects such as activity centre revitalisation, including investment with potential partners on important community infrastructure, work on city gateways to preserve the natural environment and enhance urban amenity, and attracting exciting retailers and businesses to the city to expand opportunities for entertainment and cultural enrichment. I'm extremely excited to work with officers, the community and key stakeholders in bringing these projects to life over the next 12 months and beyond. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw, and you had another 2 minutes, but thank you for saving time. No. Any further speakers, councillors? Any further speakers? No further speakers? There being no further speakers, I put it to the vote. All those All those in favour? Yes, I wasn't sure, Councillor Khan, if you're sticking your hand up to speak or not because you do it so late.
I was speaking, waiting for the speak.
You were waiting for the speak.
Yeah, this was said.
I asked Councillor Khan if there are any further speakers on a number of occasions, and you, just before I call a vote, put your hand up. So please, if you wish to speak, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, giving me an opportunity. Look, I think this is a great budget. And it highlights what we're doing, and I think I don't have much to say because majority of points have been covered by other speakers, but I was just looking the figures matters to the budget when we call the budget. What is important in budget? A dollar value. Obviously there's a dollars to spend on good projects, and the projects like here, outline is a great project. What we're doing, it was shaping the city. We're doing it now, part of the under Local Government Act 1989. Obviously, we have to require to adopt the integrated budget. So we're doing it. This is great. Now, on the recommendation on number 3, I see that, has been reduced in operating and capital grant, which is $13 million. So I see that how other people can see that on page number 26 of 156, an increase in rates and charges, which is $862,904. Also, though, we have increased our fees, obviously, and user fees, particularly in lodging application to the council, planning permits, and is this going to result for people that's going to use services here, $880,900. Can I also say this is a great budget, which is outline other good projects. Obviously, we've done great work. It won't happen overnight. It's been many, many months to working behind. I have a bit of a concern about on recommendation number 7. Recommendation number 7, where we talk about accordance to this section 146 of the Local Government Act 1989, where we're declaring intention to borrow $30 million. Which is going to fund some of the project. And that brings the total up to $85 million as at the end of the 2018 and 19. So $30 million, what gives us a per month is $2.5 million each month we'll be borrowing to meet some of the needs, which is a bit of concern particularly for myself, because I think we have to be really careful about the environment we're heading, particularly with the environment where could be a financial burdens on families and other, how we're running our project, and it's particularly looking for $30 million borrowing is particularly concern for me. Apart from that, 17, which talks about the mayor allowance and talks about council allowance, I'm pleased to see that, I've always been advocating, saying that is underpaid. It should be more because council do a really great job. And this is my view. And I don't hold other people's view. But again, can I say, these councils work more than just not 20 hours, more than hours behind the scenes, day and night. And most of them, that's right. And sometimes forget to fill a form on time. So it depends how you work. So I think it's a great budget. We were looking forward, but I have only concern regarding on item number 7. So I would...
Councillor Gilligan, please contain yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Gilligan has been excited about seeing that how hard he works, and he can't stop it. So thank you very much for being.
Thank you,
look, I wish to support, but on a point, apart from the great work council have done and officers have done behind, it's a very thorough work. Particularly, I have not supporting because I'm not a believer of the borrowing, which can bring some concern in the near future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. And I'll give myself a little bit of leeway here, and I do note the comments of Councillor McElhaney, who said that the borrowings will occur should we need them. And we all know most certainly what the direction of the Essential Services Commission has been. So just to put that into context. So, Councillor, is there any further discussion I think pretty much everyone's had a crack at it. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried.
Do we want a division for that?
You call for a division, Councillor Gilligan? Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. Councillors, all those who voted in favour of the motion, please indicate. Councillor John Gibbons, Councillor Josh Gilligan, Councillor Kim McElhaney, Councillor Walter Gonzalo, Councillor Henry Barlow, Councillor Peter Maynard, Councillor Mia Shaw, Councillor Heather Marcus, Councillor Aaron Arn, Councillor Tony Hooper. Against, Councillor Imtaj Khan. And Councillor Khan, in future, can you please indicate whether you're speaking for or against the motion? I did forget to ask you that.
For the point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, I was last.
You don't get to ask a point of order because during the conversation of tonight's debate, I asked were any further speakers for or against. You did not indicate that you were going to speak against. So please, in future, when I ask if you're going to speak against or for, please indicate accordingly.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Khan, that's the end of discussion. Councillors, item 5 on the agenda is confidential business. There is no confidential business, so at 8:10 I declare the meeting closed.